So there's something big happening with Egypt's military right now. And I'm not just talking about, buying a few new jets or tanks. We're looking at a fundamental shift in their entire strategy, one that's quietly redrawing the power map of the Middle East. So let's get into it.
And believe me, people are noticing. You've got alarms going off, especially in Israel, from observers who are watching this very closely. This quote here, it really hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that growing sense of unease as they see this new reality taking shape right next door.
So that's really the core question we need to answer, right? What is actually happening with Egypt's military? Why is it causing so much concern, and why now? And maybe most importantly, what does this all mean for the balance of power in, well, one of the most unpredictable places on the planet?
Okay, so to really get what's going on, you have to look beyond the flashy headlines about new fighter jets. This isn't just a simple upgrade. The analysis we're looking at suggests this is a top-to-bottom overhaul of Egypt's entire national security thinking. We're talking about a move towards something, well, something much bigger.
So here's the bottom line. The whole point here isn't just about having cooler, shinier weapons. It's about building a defensive shield, a fortress, if you will, that's so strong, so impenetrable, that Egypt can make its own decisions, politically and militarily, without anyone else looking over their shoulder. It all comes down to one thing: strategic independence.
So, how exactly do you build a shield like that? Well, the heart of this new strategy is something the source material calls an electronic defense wall. Think of it as a super sophisticated, multi-layered air defense network, pieced together with top-tier technology from all over the world.
And check this out. This new wall is built on two massive pillars. First, you've got the Chinese HQ-9B system. It's modern, it's flexible, really advanced stuff. Then you have the legendary Russian S-300. This thing is a powerhouse, known for its sheer reliability and strength. So what they're doing is pretty smart, right? They're mixing that modern, high-tech efficiency with raw, proven stopping power.
But here's the real secret sauce. It's not about the individual missile systems. The truly brilliant move, according to this analysis, is how Egypt is taking these new Chinese and Russian systems and weaving them together with the American and French gear they already have. They're creating one single unified defense network out of all these different parts.
And it's designed to work like this. It's a simple three-step process. First, detect. You've got long-range radars from all these different systems spotting a threat from any direction. Then, decide. The integrated command center analyzes that threat in a split second. And finally, defend. The network itself automatically chooses the absolute best weapon for the job and takes it out. The whole thing is built for speed and deadly efficiency.
Okay, but this brings up a huge question, doesn't it? For decades, Egypt basically got its military hardware from one main place. So, why go through all this insane expense and complexity now? Why build this Frankenstein's monster of a defense system? What problem were they so desperate to solve?
Well, the answer boils down to one word: diversification. You see, for years, relying on just one supplier was a huge liability. Why? Because every single piece of equipment came with political strings attached. This whole new strategy, it's designed to take a pair of scissors and cut those strings once and for all.
And this timeline really tells the story. It all started back in 1979 with the Camp David Accords. That's when Egypt became super reliant on U.S. military hardware. But then came the shock in 2013. The U.S. suspended some of that aid, and suddenly, Egypt felt incredibly vulnerable. That moment, that was the big wake-up call. It was the trigger for the strategy we're seeing play out today.
And this is where you see the stark difference. It's like apples and oranges. On one hand, the analysis says American weapons often came with a long list of conditions, basically giving the U.S. a say in how they were used. They even refused to sell certain top-tier jets. But on the other hand, Russia and China came to the table and said, here's our best tech, no strings attached. It gave Egypt the freedom to build the kind of military it felt it actually needed.
Here's a really interesting detail the source points out about that U.S. military aid. That figure, $1.3 billion, has stayed exactly the same since 1979. Think about that. With all the inflation over the decades, the actual purchasing power of that money has just cratered. It's become less of a practical lifeline and more of, well, a symbolic gesture.
And this is a crucial point. That aid was never a blank check. The source describes it perfectly as a purchase coupon. You could only spend it in one store, the American weapons store. This, of course, creates a massive dependency, right? It ties you to the U.S. for everything: parts, maintenance, upgrades. It effectively acts as a kind of remote control.
So all of this,
The diversification, the new tech, the complex network, it all leads to the final, and honestly, the most important piece of this whole puzzle. The ultimate goal of this huge military investment isn't about looking for a fight. It's about getting the power to say one very simple, very powerful word. No.
And that's why this is making some people so nervous. According to the analysis, the fear isn't that Egypt is suddenly going to attack someone. No, the real concern is the idea of a truly independent Egypt, an Egypt with a military strong enough to say, these are our interests, and we're going to pursue them, even if those interests don't perfectly align with what other countries want.
So what does that actually look like in the real world? Well, it means an independent Egypt could say no to outside pressure about its border with Gaza. It could exert total, independent control over the Suez Canal. It could decide its own foreign policy on conflicts in places like Syria or Lebanon without having to check in with anyone first. It means rejecting foreign demands that go against its own national interests.
And this quote just drives the point home. The fear isn't about a military strike. It's about a massive, important country like Egypt finally making its own decisions. The threat isn't military, it's political. It's the fear of a major player on the world stage breaking free and charting its own course. You see, for decades, the old arrangement, the old set of rules, basically wanted Egypt's military to be focused inward, on things like counterterrorism and securing its own borders. This new strategy completely shatters that mold. Egypt isn't just building a military to defend its territory anymore, it's building one that can project power and influence throughout the entire region.
So where does this all leave us? The big takeaway is that Egypt is sending a very clear message to the world. The message is, we still want peace, but we are done asking for permission. Permission to defend ourselves, permission to make our own decisions. The old rules of the game are gone, and that leaves us all with one massive question to think about. What does this new, truly independent Egypt mean for the future of the Middle East?